Rarely do we talk about what happens after the shot. And that's really what this piece is all about. Maybe you've shot an animal, you haven't recovered it, and you're speculating on just what actually happened. You have to live with that, and it carries on into your next hunt, maybe the rest of the season, maybe the rest of your life. It's just not what I thought I saw. So I'm a little bit confused. Yeah, definitely confused. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it's going to if you continue to hunt. I've made plenty of less than perfect shots over my hunting career. I mean, it's not anything that I think we as humans choose. You know, it's not the way we want it to go down. It's uncomfortable, it's not pleasant, but it's part of it. It's a part that as hunters we all have to accept, like it's going to happen. It's what we do about it, you know, that matters.
Real quick, can you tell me a little bit about what happened this morning, how far you tracked it, what evidence you got?
I already also have one in South Thomaston, which I will do after you, because that's actually a gut shot and needs some more time to sit.
As hunters, we spend a tremendous amount of our time really pre-shot. You know, it's sort of the world that we live in. It's accessible every day. We can go out and we can practice, you know, shooting our guns or shooting our bows. We can go out and look for sign, but we really can't practice recovery after the shot.
It's your big sister's turn. You had 2 last night. You ready for this, huh?
There's so much to be learned, you know, on that side of the hunt, and that's where the motivation comes from for making this film. It's to really immerse ourselves in that section of the hunt, to be present over and over again after the shot. The sort of vehicle for doing such was to work with these 2 absolutely incredible dog trackers here in the state of Maine. They see probably more recoveries in a season than most hunters will see in a lifetime.
Good girl.
Think of the knowledge base.
Pretty much the biggest surprise, I think, for people is that we're not just out there recovering deer after deer after deer, and that's not really primarily what we do. We do recover a deer, which is awesome, and that's of course the most fun and celebratory thing to do, but a lot of what we do is being able to extend that line much further than a human ever would be able to, just using their eyes, and then being able to gather that additional evidence to figure out, you know, hey, look, this animal is likely to survive based on this evidence. We do bring a lot of closure to people and a lot of peace of mind, and, you know, we have a little joke that the dog can give you permission to get back in the tree stand.
You know, when you track an animal for 200-300 yards and you go, it could be behind any tree and I just missed it. It might be dead and I just don't know because I could have walked by it. And I can confirm when I've tracked another mile or a mile and a half and found one little pin drop of watery muscle blood, and it's really incredibly powerful to watch people's stress and expression change to the dawn of, okay, it is actually going to be okay.
Whether we actually recover your deer or confirm that your deer's on its feet and it's probably not going to die, it gives you the ability to move on as a hunter.
Yep.
Once you put the dog on the track, it's just going to stay on the track until we either go 3 miles and Susanna turns around and says to you, this deer's on its feet and we're not going to keep tracking it, or we're going to walk up on your deer. You know, one or the other is going to happen.
Yep.
So.
All right.
We are all unloaded, ma'am.
Great, thank you.
I can say with confidence that 99% of the time, if the large game animal is expired, or if it's even alive in a bed, the dog's going to find it. The dog and the tracker are going to find it. There's that right here. A lot of So after tracking with the trackers for a little while, I realized that the sort of measurement of success on a track was really very different than what I thought it was. Initially I thought, well, a successful track is a recovery. But what I realized in a very short period of time was confirming for the hunter what had happened. That's the success right there. To go out and actually put all the pieces together, be able to turn around and actually look at the hunter and say, you know what, this animal's gonna survive. The hunter that night can rest assured that animal's still alive and sort of move on in terms of their pursuit, where they might not be able to otherwise,
Do you want to do the talk thing?
Yeah, talking is good. We never get
the talk thing.
never get her to slow down. So just to break that down for a second, it's the shock to the spine
Yeah.
that paralyzes
So-
the deer temporarily.
So here's what you have. You have the spine, and the spine sits actually way lower than the back that people see on
Right.
top of the deer, and then these spikes that called spinous processes.
Mhm.
And those things, if you blow one out above the spine, it bleeds, it sends a shock to the spine, it drops the deer instantly,
Right.
but it will recoup. It's literally only a temporary paralysis.
Yeah.
If you go a few inches lower and you actually hit the spine, that deer is going to stay right where it
Right.
got hit.
Right. So the rule really is, if you drop a deer like that, you really want to shoot it again, because you really don't know what's happened. You don't know if you hit it in the spine.
Either that, or you put it in your crosshairs and you watch it for 5 minutes
Yeah.
at least, because they can lay there passed out.
Right.
I had a hunter that had a friend with him on one track, and we were tracking a deer, and just from the reaction alone, I was expecting this deer to be fatally injured. It was a hit reaction that was typical for a non-fatally hit deer. I said, we're still going to track it, and we're still going to, follow it for a while and make sure that's what it is. And so we did. We tracked it for a long ways, and the friend that was with the hunter was, at the end of it, was like, this is exactly what this deer did that I hit like 10 years ago. He had the same hit reaction, same evidence. He's like, but I've been thinking for 10 years that I hit this animal and it died somewhere, and I've felt awful about it. It's hard for hunters that care so much about the animals to get back in the tree stand sometimes.
I got down to the tree stand and started looking for blood, and it was close to nightfall, and I was having trouble seeing the ground because it was getting so dark. And I was like, okay, I'll come back in the morning and spend the day looking for him if that's what it takes.
And I tracked the blood for probably 100 yards, visible blood. And then it dried up. It was starting to dry up, and I was having a hard time finding it.
I basically had to just give up on it because I couldn't follow tracks anymore. We had to back out and never ended up finding them.
I started finding clotting material in the blood, and shortly after that, the blood trail just tapered out. There's nothing really I could do beyond that.
I don't think I slept. I don't even think I went to sleep. I was so distraught about it that I couldn't find this deer. I knew I had hurt it really badly because there was blood everywhere. And the idea of it lying in the woods dead somewhere was just not acceptable to me.
It's definitely a mortal shot, and couldn't recover it. A dog would have made all the difference.
In the state that I live in, it's illegal to use dogs to track wounded large game, and so I really had no choice other than to give up. I mean, I of course spent the next hour grid searching that area, but there's really only so much you can do as a human.
I went as far as I could go, and I couldn't put the pieces together, and I don't know what happened.
I still think about that one. I wish I just at least knew if he was dead or not.
That experience stays with me to this day because I know that buck could have been dead 50 yards from where I gave up searching.
So I always wonder about what happened to that deer.
Never got confirmation either way. Never saw that deer again, never had pictures. So I don't know. I still don't know.
I'll just never know. And that's the kind of stuff that really sticks with you for a long time.
It's a tough one. It really is to live with. So
With the support of United Blood Trackers, there are now 42 states that allow the use of tracking dogs for the recovery of wounded large game.
Each state has its own ideas about how to use dogs. Here in Maine, we have a system that's been in place for 21 years. It really hasn't been changed for 21 years. Obviously, it's working very well.
I think the principles behind this law and rule are very supportive of landowner relations, ethical hunting. Any chance you get to recover a wounded animal is critically important to us as people and to the success of hunting.
If you're a hunter and you're going to tell me, you say you've been hunting for a long time and you say you're a successful hunter and you say you've never wounded a deer or you've never hit a deer and not found it, you're lying. Or you're an absolute anomaly. It happens, we're human. Deer move at the last minute, we make bad decisions, poor shots happen. It's not saying we endorse them or try for them, you pick the optimal shot, but it happens, and when it does happen, you should expend all resources possible to recover the animal. And I think that should include tracking dogs.
Using a dog really can give you the peace of mind that you've done literally everything you can to find that deer. And I think as hunters, we owe it to the deer to do everything we can to recover them.
I think that people sort of have an adverse reaction to the tracking because they don't really know about it. They don't understand it. If they really understood what we were doing while we're actually tracking a wounded large game animal, I think they would realize that really it's the most responsible thing a hunter can do.
Oh, what do you think? In 2011, I got my license basically out of a casual interest. I'm like, this would be cool. I'd do this casually, maybe in case we need it or my friends need it or something. So to learn more about it, after I got my license, I contacted Susanne Hamilton and kind of begged her to come along on tracks, and she was kind of a celebrity to me. I just thought she was so cool going out there and doing tracking. So after a lot of kind of pinging her and nagging her to take me tracking with her, we finally went on a track together, which was the first track was you were there.
Oh, with us?
Yeah.
With my deer.
With your deer,
okay, great,
yeah.
great.
Pretty much on that track we became best friends. I spent pretty much the rest of the week with her tracking, just going on any track that she had with her. And that's where it went from being, oh, maybe I'll do this casually, to I'm in the middle of a swamp in the middle of the night with Susanna, and we're laughing because we're like, getting our boots stuck, and, we're tracking for people that we just met. And that's when I suddenly was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this for anybody. I'm gonna do this all times of the night, and I'm gonna do, this is great. So that's kind of how it all started.
We love working with the kids, and we especially love Youth Day because we get to help all these young people that are getting into hunting. And, sometimes we get to make it the day that was successful rather than the day that they lost a deer. You get to be the first one to go, Bob.
Look at that.
Good shot, buddy. Awesome.
One of the calls that we got on Youth Day was from a young hunter, and her name was Emma. We had a great time on that track. It was a really special track.
I was a little bit nervous and shaky, so when I shot, I thought it was a good shot, and watched back on the video, and I got a little bit less confident in myself.
Good.
How long has it been since you shot?
So we were at 5 hours, we're going to be at 6 hours.
Maybe 6.5 by the time we get there. Yeah.
I smelled the blood, and it smelled a little bit like stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely going to die.
Mm-hmm.
The question is when, and we may still find it alive, but it'd be nice if we can just finish it. So.
Liver hits and gut hits are fatal hits. In general, not always, these types of hits don't bleed well. Sometimes it's because material has plugged up the exit wound. Other times it's just there's something about the anatomy of the deer that just makes them not bleed well from this area. The color of the blood with a liver versus a gut, there can be some subtle differences, but generally we're looking at a darker blood. Smell is very important here. So we might get just a whiff of gut smell. Maybe even with no specific blood present, we're just kind of getting that smell maybe at an area where the deer's been hit. But we can also, if we do have blood evidence, kind of take some of that blood and put it on our hands and smell it really carefully, and we'll be able to smell a bit of organ smell, of gut smell. There might also be some visual indicators too, with having some particles in the blood or some, of course, actual gut material. We might discover that evidence while we're on a track, and we might have to completely change our strategy and say, we gotta go, we gotta leave, and we have to back out, and we have to come back later, we have to wait till the next morning and come back. Whatever the case may be. It's so important to think about timing when you're thinking about these fatal organ wounds, because if we don't get the timing right, if we push this deer too soon, we could possibly lose a mortally hit animal that we could otherwise recover.
We confirmed within a short distance that it was a gut hit. To me, I knew what that meant. I knew that deer was dead. We just have to basically do everything correctly to recover that deer. But the deer can't survive that hit. Emma, being a new hunter, developing her skills, I don't think she really knew that. So she was still in that moment of, am I gonna get this deer or not? To be part of that hunt and to have that reflection and to sort of see Emma and her emotion about, am I gonna get this deer or not? Where I could stand right next to her and I could be like, there's no doubt about it, this deer's gonna die. And I also know with these dogs, there's no doubt about it, we are gonna find this deer. But she didn't know that. To watch that unfold, even though we might sort of be telling her along the way that this deer can't survive this hit, she still hasn't witnessed it. It's just like not a reality yet. She's still in that moment of, am I gonna get this deer? It's just the coolest thing ever to connect to that and actually see that. And I've been in her shoes. I've been that hunter, and I was in this other place watching exactly what I had been at one given time in my hunting career.
If you have a really solid hit at the steer, I'll have you shoot him. If you end up falling behind, or I have to be really quick, maybe the situation is that I need to dispatch it. We talked earlier and you said if you have a chance you would like to finish it.
Yeah.
I would like that for you. So I think we just have to see what happens when we come on it. If he looks at me, I will step back like this and say, go ahead, Emma, if I feel like you have a good shot.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
We've brought this track down off this hillside and we've come across some posted ground, and we've got the property owner sort of on the doorstep. I don't know if they're going to be successful getting permission or not, but I really hope that they do, and I think we're going to find that we're going to catch up with this deer real soon.
So we got landowner permission. There's also a brook that's going to be slippery and not so...
So there's a bridge over there.
There's a bridge over there that we can cross if we need to cross it.
Yeah.
My hope is, being that we jumped it that we went 250 yards from the last bed, my hope is actually that it will be very close.
When we closed the final gap on Emma's deer, he had his head up. I was the one that was with Emma, and I could hear that she was really worked up. I could hear her breathing. I mean, I can only imagine what was racing around in her head. I'll give you a rest if you want. Do you want a rest?
Yeah, please.
Once we got into position and Emma kind of collected herself, you know, she made a great shot, and we recovered the deer. I mean, it's really hard to come up on an animal that's suffering, that hasn't died. It's part of hunting. It's going to happen. The fact that we have come up on them and that we can close is really valuable. Emma made it very clear that if she, right before we started that track, she made a point. If the animal needs to be shot again, I want to be the one to shoot it again. To me, like, I can really relate to that. I want to be responsible for my actions as a hunter, and I sort of expect that that's what, you know, another hunter should do as well. I could see that for Emma, you know, I could feel that energy, you know, coming from Emma. And I think that that's why that recovery just riveted to me. Would you want to talk about blood?
Yeah, what do you want to talk about blood? Anything?
Okay, yeah.
I like the blood question.
Okay.
Blood is deceptive. There's so many views about blood that hunters have that trackers do not have, because we see blood so differently. We see it as just one little piece of the puzzle. It can be important, it can be totally unimportant. What does it look like? What color is it? How high is it off the ground? You know, is it smeared into the ground? Is it a drop on the ground? Does it matter if there's no blood? Well, my dog doesn't care if there's blood or not, right? Dogs are taking in a scent profile from an animal, and it includes everything. Foot scent, body scent, blood scent, for sure, if there's blood present. But they take everything in. For deer and moose, it's the smell of the gland at the bottom of the feet. And that interdigital gland produces so much information. It can tell the dog if the animal is stressed, if they're hurt, if they're wounded, if they're moving quickly, if they're moving slowly, and they're using all of that to do their work. There's so much more tracking than blood.
One of the things that defines a fabulous track, if there's a lot of cussing going on, a lot of getting wet and being ripped up, and then we get it after like a long haul, then it's really worth a lot, you know? Woohoo! Got a surprise for you.
Looks like a mule deer.
Yeah. All right.
You ready to?
Let's get rolling. This is a lake head, and right now the blood that I see is just sort of just muscly blood, which is darker than lung, but brighter and creamier than liver or paunch blood. Now, I don't yet know if this animal has any internal organ hit. I believe so far we have just muscle blood, and we'll follow that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We know that we might be dealing with a leg hit deer if we're seeing evidence such as bone chunks is a big one. Pieces of meat can accompany the bone pieces, and we can also get large quantities of very bright colored blood. These bone pieces are actually often misidentified as rib bone, but these types of hard, large, sharded pieces really only come from the legs for the most part. And we don't get bones of this nature from the chest cavity. In general, the larger the chunks of bone and the more pieces, then the more severe this leg injury is, and the more debilitated the deer is going to be. But we can usually tell within the first mile or so whether or not this is a deer that we're going to be able to successfully catch up to and euthanize.
We knew that this was a muscle hit that probably involved bone too, because we were finding fragments of bone. We were finding sign that really indicated that it was really dragging its leg over stuff, so there were big smears.
We have the leg dragging across these branches right here. This is what's called a smear. Susanna's calling this a smear right now. We have it here too.
When we're using the dogs, coupled with the knowledge of the trackers, you know, we're not hunting the animal. You know, we're in recovery mode. That's really what we're trying to do. If we get to a point where we think that the deer is or other large game animal is on its feet and actually going to survive, the track is over. You know, that's where we draw the line. You know, we're not hunting these animals. We're trying to recover them. This was a hit that was probably going to result in the death of this animal, although we knew it wasn't dead yet. Susanna was willing to continue to push for this because she felt this deer was going to expire. The dog had just absolutely worn itself out pushing through that stuff. And I think we'd probably gone 300 yards at that point on this track, maybe even more, maybe 400. And Susanna picked the dog up and said, I'm not sure we can go any further on this track.
She can't do this. She can't do this. I'm gonna kill the dog. I'm not gonna do that to her. But she's trying really hard, so she's just plowing through, but she's still gonna tell me.
She's telling us that the deer's over here.
That way.
The dog was just like a compass, and the dog just kept moving its head. So if Susanna had the dog here and she went like this and the dog went like that, we walked that way. And we just continued to do that. And we closed the gap on that deer probably another 200 yards. And it jumped up and we shot it. And it was exactly what we thought. It was a rear leg hit. It was a bad leg hit. There's no doubt that deer would have expired. There's no possible way a hunter would have recovered that animal.
Yeah. Susanna, that was incredible. That was incredible. Okay. Carrying the dog for 300 yards?
I know. Maggie ran out of juice after a while, but she's a really good under the armpit kind of tracker too.
It's very rare that you can actually hold on to what's really a true passion and pursue it. And I feel like both Lindsay and Susanna have done an incredible job sort of shaping their lives around this passion of tracking that they have. And when you find somebody that's really, really engaged, you know, in what they're really passionate about, it's absolutely contagious to be around.
I'm an addict. I love this so much. I love working with my dogs. My dogs are my life. They are so cute and so much fun. And they're so much fun to watch them do what they were bred to do. And I love being in the outdoors, and I love wildlife. I see this love for wildlife around me. I'm surrounded by it when I track for people. People really care. And I love people, so it just all adds up. We're doing, in the end, doing what we love. We are doing a great service to the hunting community. And we get so much appreciation and so much, you know, we make so many friends, and it's just really special.